That's cool because of that.
We had that. It was like 3 phone numbers.
We're live in 5,
Yeah.
4, 3.
Hello, welcome to Always Learning from Emtrain, where we cover tricky culture issues and our opportunities to solve them. My name is Laraine McKinnon. I'm a talent and culture strategist. And with me today is Angel Junio, who's the head of HR at LoopUp. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you here today. Angel has a fantastic career, a great philosophy around human resources, and we wanted to explore all of her background and her ideas for improving workplace cultures. And what struck me when we were first getting to know each other was your career progression and how lucky you were at the start and how many different opportunities you've had. So I thought I'd just ask you to share what's your career been like so far.
Yeah, definitely. I have had the pleasure of kind of being in the right place at the right time and also having really great mentors and supporting leadership to get me to where I need to be. And that is really evident in my first role. When I was in college, about 6 months before I graduated, I said, okay, I need to grow up and get a big girl job. And I got an internship in HR in a SaaS company that outsourced service revenue. That company actually went public about 3 or 4 months after I joined. So it was really cool to get to experience what that looks like on the back end and kind of as your first, picture into HR to really see what it takes to go public from an administrative standpoint. And then from there, I joined Sephora, which is a very large makeup retail. I'm very passionate about makeup myself. So it was kind of a dream job, and I worked in HRIS, so really understanding the nuts and bolts of employee movement and in terms of how the systems talk to each other and how the systems help HR function, as well as all of the tricky compliance things that center around employee movement, because we were really the first stopping point to say, hey, this doesn't look legal. Let's revisit this. Let's take a look at that. And then after Sephora, my old boss from when I was an intern, who's my mentor, Nira Gunn, who is fantastic, she called me up and said, hey, I've joined this startup. It's an e-commerce startup. And we'd really love to have you join as an HR generalist. And I had some chats with her and the VP of finance and the CEO, and it seemed like a great fit. So I went there. I stayed at Scava for 5 years, and again was in the right place at the right time, because about a year after I joined, we got acquired by Infosys, which is a huge, 180 million, 100,000 person company, billions of dollars in revenue, large multinational reach, and really to experience what that looks like to get acquired, and also what it looks like to integrate the cultures between a small sturdy scrap up and a startup to the big conglomerate that is Infosys. It was very interesting. And then from there, about 5 years after joining, I had the opportunity to take on a head of HR role for a conference calling company called LoopUp. LoopUp does remote meetings, takes all the pains out of conference calling, and they hadn't had an HR hire in the US. They've had a few people in HR in a company they acquired in the UK. But not any HR in their parent organization. So it was really interesting, and it's been really interesting to see how to kind of instill HR into a company that's been doing what they've been doing well for 10 years.
Yeah. So here in the US, have you been able to almost start from scratch? I mean, so, and with all your experiences, big retail, small company into Infosys, right? So what's really important to you? Because you did sort of get to start from scratch. What are the tenets of your HR philosophy?
Well, the tenets of my HR philosophy are always, honesty and openness whenever possible. We as HR people have a very interesting line that we have to juggle and kind of keep in mind of being honest to gain trust and creating that relationship that's really rooted in a real connection and mutual trust, not only from the employee to me, but me to the employee and vice versa. But also being able to keep things confidential. So it's always kind of this very interesting song and dance and, strategy of like, when can I be open? When do I have to tell someone I can't tell you? So honesty is a very big pillar in my HR philosophy, as well as the human itself. We are called human resources. We're not, worker 965. We,
Right.
try to treat the person as a whole. A lot of times we're told, leave your personal life at the door and come to work. And I don't believe in that. I believe that, if we really want to be our best selves at work, we have to be holistic in how we think about our employees and how we treat our employees, crafting good benefits for them outside of work.
Great. Okay. Can we talk about transparency?
Yes.
And you sort of alluded to it, and it's hard. I think we at Emtrain, with our clients and the work that we get to do, are really leaning into transparency. So these ideas that there are subcultures within organizations, there's power dynamics, there's in-groups, out-groups, like your employees kind of already know what's going on at work. So how can we just acknowledge that? And maybe senior management doesn't always know what's happening in the trenches, in part because people don't want to bubble up bad news, or senior management always gets, sort of the party line from management and managers who are sending information along. But we're really interested in transparency and letting people's opinions and impressions be heard. How do you do that within HR? And are you afraid of transparency, or is transparency a good thing? How do you think about it?
My personal belief is I think transparency is the best policy whenever possible. Obviously, you have to be strategic in certain, sensitive matters. But when I started at LoopUp, the very first thing I did is I booked a listening tour, which was a bit of a feat because LoopUp has 18 offices around the world.
Wow.
So I made my way to almost every office in the first, few months. So that I could really get to talk to as many people as possible. And I wanted these people to be not only the top and, the managers and the people that we see as influential and high performers, but also the everyday worker who, maybe not gets the, the
sort of the recognition
or the, the limelight that, the other people do get because they're high performers or they're managers. So it's really cool because I went to London and I went to Wales and I went to New York and LA and Dallas, and I really got to know not only what the managers think, but what the people who just started think and what the people who have been there for a while think. And it's really, trust is a hormone that is based in oxytocin. It's the same hormone that creates love and feelings of that. So there are some behaviors we can do to kind of build that. And one of those is, being intentional in your personal relationships. So a really important part of the listening tour for me is not for me just to hear their gripes, but for them to know me as a person and know that I'm not just an anonymous email box that, their emails will get lost in, that I'm actually a person who cares, and I have different facets to my personality, and I'm not just all about HR. Here are some other things I do, and, let's go get a bite to eat, or let's have a coffee, tell me, about this, find some common ground. So I really believe in the personal relationship and using that personal relationship to earn trust slowly and steadily over time.
And did you find in different cities that you had different sort of reactions, or that people came to you a little bit more closed in some cities, more open in others?
A really good example I have actually is Dallas. Dallas is a interesting office for me because I don't, nowadays political climate is always, it can be very polarizing and people find themselves on one side of the fence. And I have always felt that, okay, we can agree to disagree. But of course, I think they had some preconceived notions about me. I had some preconceived notions about them. So I went in a little cautious. And I was blown away by how open they were to me and how welcoming they were. And then I actually came back and visited them a second time. And the second time we did talk about some of those, uncomfortable things that people don't like to talk about, but we were able to do it in a way that was respectful and, understood everyone's views. And at the end of the, happy hour session that we had, we're able to agree that, yeah, you know, I like you as a person, you like me as a person. We may disagree here and there, but like fundamentally, like we're all humans, we're all in this together. And it was a really great experience because I was always nervous about an office that, you know, could potentially be slightly different for me. But it was great to see that, you know, we still at the end of the day, like all got along and really formed some great relationships.
We do some polling on that in our culture analytics, and we definitely see this 2020 election coming as a very sensitive area. But we know that if people can just base their observations and their conversations in respect and respecting the other person, knowing where they're coming from, it makes a huge difference. So it sounds like you've done that very successfully. One of the other things you've done successfully is managed HR in like retail organizations with a younger population that's high turnover, a more sort of mid-age population where you've got more sort of longer term career professionals with advanced degrees. So how do you think about being true and being yourself and connecting with these different types of populations?
I think a big thing is knowing your audience. So Sephora is definitely a younger market. It's, you know, 18 to 26 average age, predominantly female, both in corporate and in the retail setting. A lot of fast turnover, especially in the retail stores. And then, you know, I went to an e-commerce startup where average age was 39, which is unheard of in Silicon Valley. Extremely smart, extremely technical, very family-oriented people, and understanding that, okay, how do I speak to this population and get them what they need, and how do I speak to this population and get them what they need? So, you know, for the retail employees, it was really making sure that they understood everything from nut to bolt in a way that was approachable and not condescending, and just, you know, very honest and open of like, hey, this may be your first job. You are maybe in college and this is your first time learning, and this is how it works. And there's no problem with you asking questions. It's totally, we've all started somewhere, like ask me questions. That's what I'm here for. To going to an e-commerce startup where everyone has been around the block multiple times, and you have to go into a meeting and have thought of every complicated scenario to be able to answer some of these really complex and very, you know, interesting questions of like, okay, I've thought about it this way, but if I go overseas and retire, your retirement account maybe might not work. And just always giving them more and showing them that you've done your research and that you are considering them not only as a person, but their families was very big in that population. And then bringing it back to LoopUp. LoopUp tends to be a, you know, younger organization. We take a lot of fresh grads from college, and it's really about training them in kind of, you know, professionalism and how the workplace works. But, you know, we have a really great training program in place that takes them from day 1 to day 90, step by step. So it's kind of showing them like, this is how it works, and we're here along every step of the way. If you need help or if you need guidance, you can talk to your manager, you can talk to me, you can talk to other people in the department who've been here a while, and really just kind of supporting them as they grow.
And one of the things that you had mentioned when we were first talking was about your sort of role as an employee advocate, which I thought was interesting coming from HR. I think HR folks always want to be the employee advocate, but it's hard because you represent the organization and you want to represent the employee too. So how do you think about that balance?
You know, at the end of the day, as an HR person, you are an agent of the company. But I truly believe if you want to serve your company the best, you have to be an advocate for the employee, because otherwise your good talent will leave. And everyone knows that a company is only as strong as its weakest link. So I truly believe that to be doing the best for the company, I am fighting for the employee, because motivated employees and engaged employees are going to work harder for you, are going to be more loyal, are going to, you know, turn out more revenue, because they are so excited to come to work, or they feel trusted, or they feel that they're empowered to make decisions and can do things, and rather than, you know, following a cookie cutter guidelines, sometimes they can step out of the box, and that's okay, because, you know, they're trusted, and people have their back. And they can do so in a way that is safe. My old CEO at Scava always said, I want my people to feel safe to fail. because that's when the good ideas come, when they try new things and when they think outside of the box. And I want them to know that it's okay to fail, because that just, puts you further along to the steps of success.
And was it actually okay to fail? Because, sometimes there are these top level discussions and, the CEO will say something like that and people are like, yeah, but it's not really okay.
Yeah.
Like, was it really okay to fail?
It took some time.
Okay.
I think theoretically it was always kind of like, yes, we're 100% behind this. And then there would be a few times that maybe someone would miss the mark and they would come down. But then the magical thing about this company is if they were able to say, hey, this is why I did this, steps A, B, C, even if they didn't agree with you, they would respect you because they could see that you've thought about it.
Yeah.
Versus, failing just like carelessly was a different type of failing, but failing because you tried and it just didn't work out, they were very supportive of.
And you had a rational reason for trying
exactly.
it the way you did. Do you think everyone could fail equally, right? So you think about diversity and bias, did everybody have that chance to kind of prove themselves, or were some people held to a different standard?
I would say for the most part, yes. I think the only thing that really affected that was your tenure. And how much you proved yourself. But I always told employees in that role that my favorite thing about my job was my creative freedom, which is a weird thing to say in HR because you don't think HR has creative freedom. But to be able to think of a solution that no one's ever done before or is a little out there or is a little kind of scrappy, but have your leaders be like, yeah, we'll give it a try. Let's see how it goes. Was really great. Or to say, hey, CEO, I'm very interested in this and I'm looking at our data and I think there's a hole here. Can we try and fix it by doing this new kind of innovative, slightly risky, initiative? And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, I will eat my words and roll it back on my own. And, to let them say, yeah, give it a try or, go for that. And, we trust you. Was really great to kind of, be given that freedom to create.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
How about the bigger challenges, the more, strategic challenges? I'm thinking about, transparency in larger organizations or with a management team that's maybe not quite ready for transparency because it is a new shift. I think we see it more here in Silicon Valley than we do elsewhere. There's sort of old hierarchies and way of doing business. And here we tend to be in some organizations a little bit flatter, where everybody gets a say. And it's this element of meritocracy, which we are striving for, but not yet achieving or attaining. So how do you think about some of those challenges?
I think that, one great example I have is Sephora. When I was at Sephora, there was a CEO change. And that in a company like Sephora, which not only has a large presence in corporate, with, over 1,000 employees, but also multi-state, age difference and multi-location, change is hard. And to not only think about that and communicate that, they really thought about the emotional aspect of change management and how to best handle it. And they split us all up into tiny rooms, so it felt more intimate. And rather than being in a room with 1,000 people or on a web conference where, one person is telling, thousands of people, they really took the time to send their leaders out and have small individual discussions where people could feel safe to voice their concern and to have the emotional reaction of, this is a big change. This can be something scary, but let's talk about it. I felt like I was in someone's living room. I felt like it was my mom telling me something and I had a conversation with my mom because it was so intimate and it was so thought of and it was so carefully planned. And I think change takes time. In my current role, I've been there less than a year and I've taken the time to sit back and just watch the business as much as possible and just let people tell me how things work and try and see it for myself and experience it before I really come in and say, this is how it has to be done. Obviously for the high risk things that HR people are, freak out about, we had to fix those right away. But in terms of cultural shifts and, cultural values and thoughts about transparency and openness and some of these bigger things, diversity, inclusion, those take years. This is not someone coming in and saying, yeah, this is how it's going to work, and everyone who's been here for 10 years follow me, who's been here for 6 months, and I know the way. It really takes that trust and me giving them little things that they ask for to show them that I'm trustworthy and that I can perform for them and that I can do what they need. But my big kind of scary idea is good for you too. So I'm going to give you something, but maybe you can give me a little bit more towards my big, scary idea that I'm trying to introduce at this company.
Yeah. So taking the time and having these conversations in the right places sounds like both strategy and tactics.
Yes. Yeah. Right place, right time. I think the people don't, often plan for the emotional aspect, good news or bad news, and knowing your audience. If I have an introvert on my team, maybe they don't want public recognition when they've done something well. Maybe it makes them uncomfortable. So how do I celebrate that person and give that person what they need to be motivated? Because it doesn't look like what everyone else does. Or if I have someone who's very nervous of public speaking, how do I get them comfortable with talking to stakeholders? And kind of managing for those things in, the small picture of the singular employee, but also in the big picture of, okay, I am in an organization that has done something this way for this long. How am I going to kind of manage the initial emotional response of this is change, this is scary?
Yeah. All right. So with that, what are you most looking forward to in 2020? What's on your docket to complete or attempt?
I think 2020 for me is going to be the year of transparency and openness as always, and trying to really just live that in the way that my team functions and processes, and also making ourselves more available. I think this last year we've been very process oriented, and now it's time to get back into kind of like the business partnering side, which I'm very excited about. I'm really looking forward to new beginnings. I think, 2019 in a lot of ways was stressful for a lot of people. And I just see this new year and the fresh start of 2020 as a chance to kind of refresh, refocus, and just get after what we need to do.
Yeah, love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences and ideas and the opportunities we have ahead for us. Thank you for participating in LinkedIn Live. So folks who want to follow Emtrain on LinkedIn will get lots more information on industry trends and ideas. It's a great way to stay up to date, and it's a great way to find access to incredible people like Angel. Thank you again.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're out. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's always good to